Hello and welcome back to my channel here in Costa del Island. Or maybe I should say Costa del Air. That has a nicer ring to it, doesn't it? Now, as much as I'd love to be down the beach, this kind of weather means one thing for me: more grunt work. There are still mountains of trees to deal with and a never-ending list of other gardening jobs while the sun's out. But for now, I invite you to join me while I take a little break. Because today I want to talk about something that had a huge impact on me: my experience with a narcissist. Now, when I got involved with one, this was 2008, I had no idea what a narcissist was. No TikTok, no Reels, no one talking about red flags. In fact, I think I'd only heard the word narcissist maybe once or twice in my life, and I thought it just meant someone who was quite vain. It wasn't until years after the relationship ended that I started seeing things online and going, oh my God, that's exactly what he did. The shitty ex, the one who nearly drove me mad. And you've probably seen dozens of videos about narcissism by now. It's everywhere. But I'm speaking from direct personal experience. And I'm throwing my 2 pence worth in because sometimes we need to hear the same thing said in a few different ways before it clicks. So I'm going to tell my story and the lessons I learned the hard way. And what I can offer is some brutal honesty. So these next few videos, they're not just about me blaming someone else. I will take ownership of the part I played in staying for as long as I did. And just for the record, I had been in a couple of fairly long-term relationships before I met Kyle. That's a fake name, but close enough. And while those previous relationships weren't perfect, they were pretty healthy. You know, there were no weird mind games or manipulation or anything like that. So when I got involved with Kyle, I'd never experienced anything like it before. I had no idea what I was dealing with. And wow, what an experience. Now, rather than ramble on for ages, I'm going to break this down into a 3-part series because it turns out I've got rather a lot to say on this topic. So in this first video, I'm going to share 5 toxic behaviours that I experienced firsthand with Kyle. And in part 2, we'll dig a little deeper into why even smart people get trapped in these relationships. And then in part 3, I'll just share a very quick, simple list of advice I would give to my younger self. Okay, so let me tell you about Kyle. We met at work. In fact, we worked literally side by side in the same office. And he seemed very polite and courteous, a little shy, quite thoughtful. And as he opened up, we found some common interests, and he was funny and charming and all the things. And then after a few weeks, the love bombing started. It was all the love languages laid on thick with a trowel. Poetic words, thoughtful gestures, gifts, constant affection. Because you see, I was the one he'd been waiting for his whole life. Later, I realised he'd said that to at least 24 other women. In fact, it turned out he was engaged to someone else. And I'll spare you the gory details, but yes, it was a slow motion car crash right from the start. There were some massive red flags, and I really did try to set some boundaries. But wow, when a skilled narcissist turns on the bespoke, personalised charm, that relentless love bombing, it can be seriously intoxicating, and it kind of wears you down. Anyway, after a few intense and, quite frankly, weird months, he left his fiancée, got his own flat, and over time, we just sort of slid into a relationship. But after all that hot came the cold, the silent treatment. And I later learned this phase is called stonewalling, and it was his favourite weapon. Not screaming or shouting, not physical abuse, just days and days of silence. Imagine living and working with someone who acts like you're completely invisible. It's very surreal and very distressing. And I'm not talking about someone needing a few days to cool down. I'm talking days and days of someone not looking at you, not hearing you, as though you didn't actually exist. Unless you've been through it, it's really hard to understand just how destabilising that kind of silent treatment can be. It's horrible. Honestly, I would rather have been punched in the face, because at least I could have instantly recognised that for the abuse that it is and walked away. That would have been an instant deal breaker, no question. But the prolonged silent treatment, it's a whole different kind of cruelty. And you start combing back through everything you said and did, trying to figure out what triggered it, but not finding anything. Now, during these periods of stonewalling, Kyle would also sprinkle in a healthy dose of passive-aggressive behaviour. Now, obviously this can play out in a multitude of ways, but Kyle, he was into photography, and his favourite game was to leave ripped up photos of me in the bin, strategically arranged in such a way that I'd see them the next time I went to throw something away. Or he'd leave a crumpled handwritten letter. Again, it was very obvious he wanted me to see it, but he was trying to make it look like he didn't want me to see it. And of course I'd read them, and it was always this long-winded pity party in which he was always the victim, because these people will never, ever, ever take accountability for their actions. Now, sooner or later, he'd start to warm up and start speaking again, and I would initiate some discussion about what went wrong. But that's when the gaslighting came into play. When I tried to talk about what happened, it'd be, I never did that, I never said that. That didn't happen. Your memory's bad. You're overreacting. You're being crazy, sensitive, melodramatic. Or he'd skip the gaslighting and go straight in with the hoovering. They suck you back in with intense remorse and declarations of love. You get the tears and the apologies and the monologue about how you're the love of my life, and you get the victim card again. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm such a fuck up. It's a bad patch. A friend did me wrong. My mum didn't love me enough. I had a shitty childhood. I bumped into my crazy ex. And I promise I will change. Spoiler alert, all of their exes are crazy and they will never change. Oh, and on a side note, it turned out that Kyle was a functioning alcoholic. So that was fun. Substance abuse is quite common in narcissists. Anyway, after that cycle of love bombing, then stonewalling, mixed in with some passive-aggressive behaviour, a sprinkle of gaslighting, and then onto the hoovering, you then get a nice little stretch of calm, of normality, something that actually feels healthy. In fact, you get to hang out with the best, most loving, attentive partner in the world for a few days or a few weeks, if you're really lucky, more than a month, until it starts all over again. And we struggled on like that, on and off, for 5 years. It was confusing and mind-bending and absolutely exhausting. And something else you come to learn gradually about the narcissist over a period of time is that they are out and out liars. But like I say, it can take you years to fully realise the extent of their lies. Now, at this point, I reckon I could split my viewers into two groups. Group 1 will be shaking their heads going, what the hell were you doing with this guy? Why on earth did you stay? And then Group 2, the ones who've lived through it, will be quietly nodding, going, yep, that sounds exactly like my shitty ex. Should have left sooner, but I didn't. And that's really the question. Why did I stick at it for 5 years? Because trust me, intelligence and sass doesn't make you immune from the narcissist charms. I've seen the same thing play out with people who I would otherwise describe as strong-minded and independent and having a low bullshit threshold. So that's what we'll explore in part 2, which drops in a few days. We'll dig into the psychology behind why even smart people get trapped in the narcissist cycle of abuse. So if you want to see that, hit the bell icon so you don't miss it. As always, thank you very much for watching. Stay real, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Time to chop some more branches.